Created as a refit for the Nebula class design, the Sutherland class would quickly prove itself far and wide to the galaxy at large. But what do we know about this advanced starship class? Well, today we'll find out. Hello and welcome to another episode of Truth or Myth Beta Canon, a Star Trek web series that dives into the history of any given topic, using Beta Canon sources and my own imagination to fill in the gaps. In today's episode, we're taking a look at the Sutherland class, as first seen in Star Trek Online, and now a canon design thanks to Season 2 of Star Trek Picard, to better understand its place in Star Trek history. I'd like to give a huge shout out to ThatGuyAndres, who provided me with the excellent model of the Sutherland class. A link to their Deviant art page is in the description below, so check it out and show them some love. As always, because this is a beta canon video, all information relayed should pretty much be taken with a grain of stardust, and only considered a little bit of Star Trek fun. And so, with all that out of the way, let's begin. The latter part of the 24th century was filled with game-changing moments for Starfleet and the United Federation of Planets. The introduction and subsequent battles with the Borg Collective, as well as the Dominion War, all had an impact on the people of both organizations. But by the 2380s, citizens of the Federation had begun to relax, only suddenly to find themselves once again with a crisis on their doorstep: Romulus. A sudden destabilization of the Romulan star would put the Romulan homeworld in danger, as in a matter of years, their sun would go supernova. Analysis of the Romulan star detected another very unusual side effect that would expand the crisis exponentially. The star itself was irradiating into subspace. This phenomena had never been encountered before, and meant that when the star went nova, blast waves would be shot out into subspace, which also meant that any star system surrounding Romulus was in danger of also being destroyed. The Romulan Star Empire did not have the resources to combat this threat, let alone evacuate everyone from their own homeworld. The Dominion War and subsequent uprising and rebellion of the Reman people had seen their own fleet dwindle in numbers. Add to that, time for round-trip travel to nearby unthreatened star systems and back to the Romulan homeworld. Even with every starship available to the Star Empire in operation, meant that billions on Romulus would die. With the lack of resources and an unknown amount of time before the star went supernova, the Romulan Star Empire had no choice but to turn to the Federation and Klingon Empire for help. After centuries of animosity with the Romulans, the Klingon Empire flatly refused to assist their mortal enemy, and many citizens and member worlds throughout the Federation saw this refusal as the just deserts that the Star Empire had brought on itself. For the Federation, though, one man would take up the cause of saving all lives in the Nova's radius, and that man was Admiral Jean-Luc Picard. Coming up with a two-pronged plan, he presented his idea to the Federation Council, and after a great speech, the Council would approve the plan and agree to help the Romulan Star Empire. The first prong of his plan was to expand Utopia Planitia's shipyards and construct 10,000 very simple, high-speed starships to ferry Romulans and adjoining star system species to safety. The second prong was to recall 2/3 of the fleet back to Utopia Planitia and have them altered in very specific ways to function as advanced colony starships. These vessels would then head to the blast area, fill themselves up with passengers, and head to one of the various refugee planets where they would remain to provide required materials until those colonies and planets could sustain the new populations on their own. This would have been the crowning achievement of Jean-Luc Picard's career. But then, everything went wrong. On April 5th, 2385, First Contact Day, the synthetic population of Mars went rogue, attacking and destroying the Utopia Planitia shipyards and setting Mars ablaze. With his entire fleet of starships destroyed or badly damaged, Admiral Picard approached the Federation Council with a new plan: to quickly pull and refit decommissioned starships from over the centuries to evacuate as many from the area as possible. The Federation Council this time, however, did not approve his plan. Growing dissent over the initial plan to help the Romulans, a mortal enemy of the Federation, along with various rumors that the Romulans themselves were to blame for the attack on Mars, allowed several Federation member worlds to push for the Federation to withdraw from helping the Romulans. And with the Federation so severely vulnerable itself, the vote was swayed, and the Federation Council withdrew its assistance. Tens of billions of lives were lost in 2387 when the Romulan sun finally did go nova, and Admiral Picard, in protest for Starfleet and the Federation's actions, could only sit at his chateau and watch the Federation news service. Starfleet would use part of Picard's plan, though, bolstering their own fleet with decommissioned starships while they constructed new vessels of a single class, the Inquiry class, to replace the ships that they had lost. But by the early 2390s, the fleet was approaching full strength once again, and with the Romulan Star Empire having collapsed and splintered into several factions after the homeworld's destruction, Starfleet began to breathe a sigh of relief and return back to regular starship construction operations. Though not many starships had survived the synth attack, the u.s.s. Sutherland, though badly damaged, had, and Starfleet made the decision to refit and upgrade that vessel, giving birth to a new variant of the Nebula class, and the Sutherland Class would be born. Sitting at a length of 452.3 meters and 33 decks tall, the Sutherland Class would be designed to be operated by 720 officers and crew members. Unlike her predecessor, the Sutherland Class would not be designed with families in mind. Though any crew member of the class could apply to have their families reside aboard ship, facilities for these families were toned down and quite limited. Instead, the Sutherland Class would be jam-packed with scientific equipment and cargo facilities. The mission profile for this upgraded class would be one of exploration, similar to the mission profile once held by the Galaxy class. However, the Sutherland class would also include several large industrial replicators, which would allow the Starship class to act as a colony vessel, having the ability to create and build colonies, star bases, and any other equipment the organization might require of it. The Sutherland class would have a standard safe cruising speed of warp factor 9, with an emergency speed of warp factor 9.995, though sustaining that velocity would oftentimes do irreparable damage to its warp drive components. Tactically, the Sutherland class would contain 10 phaser emitter arrays and 4 photon torpedo launchers, 2 forward and 2 aft. Shielding for this class would be upgraded to be comparable to the Inquiry and Odyssey class's shield output. Although able to be detached, the Sutherland class's Mission Pod Type 1 was more than often kept for the entire lifespan of a vessel, and only one other pod, a large and classified sensor array system, was designed for it. Most other systems of the class were also standard for Starfleet starships of the time, including the Sutherland class's bioneural circuitry. But it should be noted that the Sutherland class also contained several specially designed shuttlecraft types not included in any other starship class to assist it with its various mission profiles. Launched in 2395, the u.s.s. Sutherland's shakedown cruise would be uneventful, simply requiring the vessel to have routine settling-in adjustments made to her. But impressed with her performance nonetheless, Starfleet Command would put the new Nebula-class variant design into full production. And when Starfleet Command made the decision to explore the star systems in the Beta Orius region, an unexplored area of space on the border of the Delta Quadrant, several vessels of this class, including the u.s.s. Sutherland herself, would lead that charge. The Sutherland Class would continue in operation until the early 26th century, when advancements in technology as well as changes to Starfleet's aesthetics would finally see production stop on the class, and the slow process of decommissioning it began. Created as a variant of the Nebula class after a devastating blow to both Starfleet and the Federation, the Sutherland class would prove itself a valuable addition to both organizations, earning this class its updated place in Starfleet history. Thank you for watching today's episode of Truth or Myth Beta Canon. What do you think of the Sutherland class and the historical narrative that I've created here? Do you want to see more videos like this one? Well, leave your comments in the section below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting that little bell icon so you won't miss a single video we release. Want to help the channel become canon in Star Trek Picard? Then consider becoming a channel patron. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Live long and prosper.